On one of the best TV shows ever, she played a proper secretary. He was the most sleazy comedian in the US. However, Nancy Culp and Redd Foxx kept a secret from everyone in Hollywood that shocked everyone who found out. It wasn't just a one-night stand. It was more dangerous and deeper, and a lot more dangerous back then. They knew that if someone caught them, it would be the end of both of their jobs. Still, they did it, and after many years the truth finally got out, and everything you thought you knew about them is now wrong. She was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, on August 28, 1921, the only child in a family who lived, breathed, and loved school. Her mom used to teach and then became a director. In charge, her grandfather worked. And when she was a teen, her family moved to Florida in search of better prospects. Because she grew up in the South and had to go to a strict school, Nancy is one of a kind. A woman who would one day be good at writing, speaking languages, being in the military, and even Hollywood. Nancy was smart but also nice. She couldn't be stopped. She graduated from Florida State College for Women with a degree in writing. Then she went even further and earned master's degrees in both English and French from the University of Miami. That wasn't just for show. She wrote about stars like Clark Gable and Myrna Loy in feature stories for the Miami Beach Sun when she was still in school. Her clear, smooth voice drew people in because she loved telling stories and had a sharp mind. It wasn't just students either. She was a member of Pi Beta Phi and knew how to move in any setting, from classrooms to red carpets. After that there was war. Nancy quit school in 1944 and joined the Navy even though she had a bright future ahead of her. She joined the Waves, a backup unit for women only, and quickly became a lieutenant junior. Not a nurse or secretary, but a high-ranking soldier. She served until 1946 and got medals like the American Campaign and Good Conduct Awards. She later said that she liked being around only women. It wasn't just about comfort though. In a world run by men, she had to show that she was independent, a leader, and able to handle herself. She didn't slow down when the war was over. She went back to work as a reporter and kept writing about famous people. Things were different this time, though. He died in 1951, and she went to Hollywood with her new husband. She planned to use her writing skills behind the scenes at MGM as a marketing worker. But George Cukor, the famous director, saw something that other people didn't see after only 3 weeks on the job. He saw a star when he looked away from the machine. Nancy agreed to try out after Cukor and casting head Billy Gordon persuaded her. Her first movie role was in The Model and The Marriage Broker, which came out that same year. The person who used to write about stars was now one of them. More than 30 movies were made with her over the next 20 years. In the movie Sabrina, she was Audrey Hepburn's helper. She played the strange Miss Grunecker in The Parent Trap. Even though she played small parts and wasn't always given credit, she was easy to remember. That was enough for her to shine. She became an expert on oddball spinsters and tough women who were surprisingly friendly. You knew her face but not her name. She even did the role of a horse in The Aristocats, a Disney movie from 1970. Her personal life, on the other hand, was unknown. The day they got married was April Fool's Day, 1951. The time felt like a hint already. After 10 years they got a divorce in 1961, just as Nancy's TV career was taking off. She never got married again, never talked about the relationship, and always dodged questions about Dacus. Some people said he was gay. Some people thought the marriage was an act. Any way you look at it, Nancy kept that part secret. Following the divorce, she lived alone and never got together with another guy again. When a woman played lonely roles so well, it's hard not to wonder how much of it was playing. Her big break in TV came when she was on The Bob Cummings Show. She played Pamela Livingstone, a strange bird watcher who wore a pith hat. It worked, it was strange, and it was funny. Nancy made this strange person into a figure that people remembered. From 1955 to 1959 she was only in 15 shows, but that was enough. Paul Henning, who made the show, never forgot about her. When he made the Beverly Hillbillies, he asked Nancy to play Jane Hathaway, another weirdo who loves birds. This character would become famous. In the 1950s and early 1960s, Nancy was on every big TV show before Herb Hillbillies. She was a maid on I Love Lucy, a drunk waitress on Maverick, and a coach on Perry Mason who taught people how to bow. She was a math teacher some of the time and a nosy neighbor other of the time. She played 2 different roles on My 3 Sons in 1962 alone. People who were casting loved her because she could play any part perfectly and make people laugh or feel something in just one scene. Her friendship with George Cukor was at the heart of everything. Her life changed because of him. He did more than just lead. He was one of the few gay guys in Hollywood in the 1950s who didn't hide it. He also saw ability in people who didn't fit the usual mold. It wasn't just her first movie part that he gave her, he had faith in her when no one else did. He stuck by her even after one of her scenes was cut from A Star Is Born without her permission. Big stars in the business had worked with Cukor, but he made time for Nancy Culp because he thought she could do well. That says it all. Then there was the unhappy single woman. It was important to them that the person didn't look or sound like a typical country person. That's why Nancy Culp was chosen to play Miss Jane Hathaway on CBS. It was a simple but great plan. It's not a good idea to put a polished, proper woman next to a family of dull Ozarks riches. It worked. Nancy's narrow jaw, serious voice, and stiff stance went well with the Clampett's crazy backwards energy. She wasn't just a stiff secretary, though. There was a twist in the story. She privately loved Jethro, who was good-looking but not very smart. They even used her real name, which made it even funnier. Jane Nancy Hathaway changed her name from Nancy Jane Culp. It was a quiet inside joke, but it gave a character more depth and made them one of the most famous sidekicks in TV history. By 1967, all of her hard work was finally being noticed. For Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy, Nancy was up for an Emmy. The fifth season of the Beverly Hillbillies had a 23.4 rating and was still one of the 10 most watched shows in the U.S. Marion Lorne from Bewitched, who won after her death, and Frances Bevier from The Andy Griffith Show were two big names she had to compete with. But Nancy's choice meant more than that. It showed how much life she brought to a part that could have been dull. The odd bird watching, the strong desire, and the tight bun in her hair, everything worked. And it wasn't the first time she played a woman who was crazy about birds. This was a role she played on the Bob Cummings Show many years ago as Pamela Livingstone. That part from before served as a model for Miss Jane. Fans and people who worked with Nancy started calling her the Bird Lady in the late 1960s. Over the course of 9 years, Nancy Culp played Miss Jane in all 274 episodes. The show was great on American TV from 1962 to 1971. In its first 2 seasons, it got scores of 36.0 and 39.1 on the Nielsen scale, making it number 1. We still don't hear of that. It still has 16 episodes that are in the top 100 most watched shows of all time. It didn't just make people laugh, it created a whole genre. Nancy played a big part. Her character never wore a lot of different clothes or tried to be famous, but people always remembered her. People still think of her buttoned up, bringing a clipboard and giving Jethro one more disapproving look when they think of the Beverly Hillbillies, even after 45 years. The show was canceled as part of CBS's well-known Rural Purge, in which they got rid of anything that seemed too country. But Miss Jane Hathaway was already well-known in pop culture at that point. The split of Nancy Culp from Charles Malcolm Dacus in 1961 changed her life in a big way. Since April 1, 1951, 10 years had passed since they got married. There was a strange event after the break. No one ever saw her with a guy again. Not once. At a time when Hollywood thought that women should always be linked to good-looking men to keep up appearances, Nancy stopped being linked to any guys. There was talk in gossip magazines. Insiders in the field did too. For an actor with a steady job, not saying anything about her love life was almost unheard of. Nancy didn't go on dates. Instead, she spent her days with female coworkers, friends, and charity work. People began to talk. There were a lot of rumors in Hollywood in the 1960s and 1970s. Soon a lot of people thought they knew why she kept her private life so secret. Nancy didn't just avoid dating guys, she also avoided being seen with them, even for photos that were just for publicity. Not only was that strange, it was done on purpose. Then in 1989, Nancy finally told everyone what was going on. She was 68 years old and only 2 years away from dying. She talked to Boz Hadley, a reporter who is known for writing about LGBTQ+ people in Hollywood. It wasn't loud or brave what she said, but it was clear. She carefully used a metaphor in her answer. "Do you believe that differences attract?" she asked herself. That's how I would answer, I'm the other kind. I believe that like-minded people tend to stick together. That was her truth, laid out quietly for anyone who paid close attention. She was very aware of what she was doing. Nancy used to say that any talk about sexuality in show business was the death question. She was right too. It was possible to lose your job if you said the wrong thing back then. Nancy went her own way though. She was used to that bird comparison. During the 1970s and 1980s, she used it a lot and slipped it into conversations. Her Beverly Hillbillies character was in a group that watched birds. For those who got it, there was one more layer of quiet meaning. The reporters got it. She never said too little or too much. It was a surprise to everyone when they showed up on a game show in the 1970s. In front of the camera, Nancy Culp said she wouldn't date a guy. This was a long time ago, before most famous people were brave enough to be open. That kind of surprise didn't go over well in Hollywood, especially not from someone that Americans saw every week on TV. The bosses got scared. Some people told her she might lose next jobs, but it didn't bother her. Everyone knew what Nancy meant when she told them the truth. By 1984, Nancy was more than just a famed TV star. She aimed to become a representative. She ran for president at age 62, House of Representatives in the 9th District of Pennsylvania. She went back to her home state and lived in a small country house near Mifflintown. In an area that is mostly Republican, she ran for office as a Democrat. She wanted to raise taxes on the wealthy, cut back on spending on the military, and make environmental rules stronger. She didn't care that she had never been in charge before. She told the people, "I'm new to politics but not to life." People paid attention. Her Hollywood friends stood by her. In Los Angeles, Ed Asner held a benefit at his home. There were big stars there. Valerie Harper and Betty White. Just that one night, they raised $28,000. Nancy seemed like she had a good chance to win. Only as things were getting better, the rug was pulled out from under her. Buddy Ebsen, who used to be her co-star, stepped in, but not to help. He made a radio ad for Bud Schuster, her opponent. Ebsen told people that Nancy was too left and didn't understand how hard-working Pennsylvanians lived by using his famous Jed Clampett voice. In 2 weeks the video was shown 147 times. It really hurt. How did it get worse? In fact, Ebsen wasn't even from Pennsylvania. It was Nancy. She grew up there. Those were his lands. But people who had watched the Beverly Hillbillies for years gave his voice a lot of weight. And to make it even more personal, Ebsen sent $100 to the campaign of her opponent. The first time Nancy heard the ad was in an Altoona drive-thru. Her hands were shaking. It was more than just politics. It wasn't fair. Even on set, she had always thought Ebsen was hard to work with. They had different political ideas, but she never thought this would happen. Even after years had passed, she still wouldn't let anyone bring up his name around her. She was polite when she had to talk about the show in interviews. But she made it clear behind closed doors. She thought he was dead. The election results were very harsh. She lost badly on November 6, 1984. 59,449 people voted for her. It was 117 to 203 for Schuster. That's only 33.6% of his 66.4%. It wasn't close. Reagan had just won a huge re-election victory, which made Republicans proud all over the country. That wasn't the only reason Nancy lost, though. Ebsen's ad made me feel bad. People who voted didn't believe her. Some people thought a Hollywood actress couldn't possibly know anything about politics. In a strange twist, Ronald Reagan made the same jump and won the election. The door slammed shut on Nancy, though. She didn't run again. The run for office was over. She had given up on running for office. And so was any link that was still there with Buddy Ebsen. She was always angry. Friends said that if his name came up, she would feel bad right away. She told me once that he's not the nice old Jed Clampett you saw on the show. She really meant it. Their fight became famous in Hollywood, and people took sides in secret. That same day, Redd Foxx was born in St. Louis as John L. Roy Sanford on December 9, 1922. When he was 3 years old, his father left him. He had a mother who was half Seminole. He grew up poor on the south side of Chicago. He was called Smiley as a child because he always had a smile on his face. He joined a band at age 13 and started playing the washboard. By age 16, he was taking freight trains to get to New York without any money or a plan. He only had big dreams and nerves. He was known as Redd Foxx in Baltimore bars. The name came from his nickname Red, which came from his hair and skin color, and the name Fox, which came from the name of a famous baseball player. That name stuck, and everything changed when he walked on stage. The record Laugh of the Party, which he made in 1955 for only $25, sold more than 15 million copies. He had more than 35 albums out by 1961, and some of the names were so sexy that they couldn't be shown in white stores. He put out more than 50 of them over time, and sold 10 million copies in total. He had the best raunchy songs of all time. The radio didn't play these songs. People bought them under the counter, mostly in black areas, and they were a big hit. His record company even signed him because of Frank Sinatra. He was a famous person before TV ever heard of him. He went on the Chitlin circuit with Slappy White. In 1947, they made $450 a week, which was a lot of money. They didn't dress up as black people like most shows do. They didn't hold back. They told honest jokes that no one else would dare to tell. To avoid racism, they couldn't join white clubs. Foxx was free after being turned down. His jokes got meaner, dirtier, and less afraid. Foxx worked as a cleaner in Harlem in the 1940s, and a young Malcolm X who worked with him. They called each other Chicago Red and Detroit Red because of their hair. They were close. They worked together, slept on roofs, and sold zoot clothes that they had stolen. They even joined the Communist Party, but Foxx says it was just for the sandwiches and the white women. Malcolm's life got worse, and that's when they stopped being friends. Not only on stage did Foxx resist, he ate half a bar of soap to pretend to have heart trouble during World War II and avoid being drafted. It worked. He did not pass the test, so he did not join the war. He also made 5 records that same year, 1946. No matter what it took, he was determined to stay in show business. Norman Lear asked him to be the lead in the US version of a British show called Sanford and Son in 1970. This was his big break. Lear had just made a lot of money with All in the Family and wanted to do it again. Foxx turned it into the show Sanford and Son, which was named after his late brother. When it first aired in January 1972, it went viral right away. It took place in Watts, Los Angeles, and showed the funny and sad side of working-class black life. For 3 years in a row, 1973-74, Foxx was nominated for and won a Golden Globe. For 5 years, Sanford and Son stayed in the Nielsen Top 10. He became famous for playing Fred Sanford, a grumpy junk dealer. America laughed every time he pretended to have a heart attack and yelled, "I'm coming to join you, Elizabeth." He based those scenes on a real-life act he did where he dodged the draft. Fans didn't know this. Happiness did not come free. Though, the rest of Foxx's life was a mess. His first marriage didn't last long. Betty Jean Harris, his second wife, ran his businesses until she reportedly stole $110,000. He got a court order to stop her and asked for the money back. His third wife said he hit her, so he was fired. His fourth marriage didn't last long, 3 months. In the background, his drug use got worse. He had a gold Coke spoon around his neck. He laughed on set. The money disappeared even though they made a lot of it. In 1989, the IRS broke into his home in Las Vegas. They took everything. He had 7 cars, his guitar, Elvis's watch, and $12,000 in cash. He took off all of his jewelry too. He owed $755K in back taxes, but after interest and penalties, the amount due was over $2.5 million. It was all shown on TV. As he stood outside in his underwear, Redd Foxx, a famous comedian, watched his life be taken away. He was fighting behind the scenes while everyone laughed. Fox and NBC had a fight, angry that almost no black writers or directors worked on the show. He said there were enough white producers to make a movie about Tarzan. He wanted to own it. He walked away when they said no. NBC sued him and asked for $10 million. He quit Sanford and Son in 1977 for a new comedy show because he was tired of not getting paid enough and not being noticed. On paper, they were very different from each other. One was a loud, rough comedian from the Las Vegas Strip who was known for making dirty party songs. The other was a quiet, book-smart actor who played a proper secretary on one of America's best family-friendly daytime shows. But Redd Foxx and Nancy Culp were able to meet. What they had was real, even though it was hidden by Hollywood's bright lights. In the late 1960s, their story began. For a good cause in Los Angeles. Since 1962, Nancy was known for her role as the prim and proper Miss Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies. Redd, on the other hand, had already put out more than 50 comedy records and was one of the first black comedians in Las Vegas to see white people laugh. In the 1970s, they met right before Redd went crazy on Sanford and Son. People around them were shocked when they were paired up, but they hit it off right away. That is, not romantically at first, but mentally. Equal rights were very important to both of them. Both thought that fame should be used for something greater than themselves. They were both sick of the fake Hollywood scene. She came with degrees in writing, English and French. She had been in the Navy. Redd was raised on the streets of St. Louis and learned from hard times. And improved over many years on the Chitlin tour. But they both liked talking about books, politics, and things that made other people feel bad. They could talk for hours about words, funny things, race, and justice. It was magnetic, according to people who saw it. There will be no flirting or acting up, just a real bond. Over the years they kept running into each other at private events. There are studio lots and network meetings. In public they didn't talk much, but when they weren't together it was clear that they got along. Insiders and stagehands remembered them staying up late to drink, talk about ideas and laugh. Nancy was smarter, braver and funnier than her TV character, and Redd was deep serious and very private, even though he told dirty jokes. They were different, but not really. They knew they had to keep their relationship a secret, and it wasn't just because of how things work in Hollywood. It was the 1960s and 1970s. Only 0.7% of American marriages in 1970 were between people of different races. It was still only 1.3% in 1980. Studios were afraid of losing viewers from the South, so racial marriages were bad for business. It was a big risk to even play Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. In the background, managers told their stars, "Don't do it and don't get caught." Nancy had even more to lose. Many people thought she was gay or bisexual, but she never said for sure. People in that time period could lose their jobs quickly if they were LGBTQ+. Private detectives were hired by studios. There were morality terms in contracts. Anyone who was seen with the wrong person, man or woman, could get you banned. So Nancy and Redd were putting everything at risk whenever they were seen together in public. What Redd had was his own stuff. He wasn't just shaky, he was known for making trouble. His comedies were dirty, honest, and not sorry for what they were. He got divorced many times and lost a lot of money. One time he made $4 million in a year, but then lost it all. He was smart but hard to get along with. In 1977 he quit Sanford and Son over a contract disagreement, and his co-star didn't know what happened. Networks were not sure what to do. He might be done for good after one more fuss. Who was Nancy? She would also be pulled into it. They didn't say anything though. But something changed in 1989. Nancy gave an interview in which she hinted at a chance she missed with a brave coworker. She never said anyone's name. But when she said flocks of birds of a feather, it went against everything people read and thought about her. She praised people whose work broke society rules. If you paid attention you could tell it was a whisper from a woman who had lived her whole life hiding things. Nancy was told she had cancer a year later. In 1990, she smoked for many years, long before people knew how bad it was for them. The sickness spread quickly. Her body and mind were worn out from the chemotherapy. She was gone by February 3, 1991. She was 69 years old. It was quiet when she died in Palm Desert, California. Her body was taken back to Pennsylvania. There was not a big funeral in Hollywood, and her facts were not told to the public. After only 8 months, Redd also died. On October 11, 1991, he passed out on set while practicing for the royal family. At first everyone thought it was a joke and that Redd was just acting out his old Sanford and Son heart attack scene. This time though, it was real. He said twice in a whisper, "Get my wife." He never got better. He was 68 years old. He was buried by Eddie Murphy, who said he was the funniest person he had ever met. The silence finally ended when they died. Friends began to talk. They told what they knew to people who had seen them together at those parties in those parts of Hollywood. They talked about having deep talks, laughing and getting close. They were more than friends. They were more than just playing. That wasn't it. They could never show that in Hollywood because it was too real. They had found something rare in a town that was all about looks. Something that didn't fit the pattern. Not white or black, straight or gay, star or sidekick. Two souls who saw each other when no one else did. Even though they died with their secrets still safe, no one forgot about their story. It's always possible to remember love like that.